Part 2, Chapter 3, Misplaced. A conscious but firm knocking rippled the dark pond my mind floated in. The miasma of a dreamless slumber clung to me like hungry teeth, stirring in place while my vision remained clouded. I rolled once, took a dry sip of air, and exhaled with a cough. My skin felt damp. Warbling in my ears kept the illusion of another world, a place full of silent song and cheerful despondency. In the 30 seconds it took for another knock to come, I had nearly slipped off the precipice again. I twitched, my right eye peeling partly open, but my iris didn't align with sight at first. Scrunching my face, I grunted and flopped one arm over my torso, and it slapped against the floor. It was then that I realized how low to the ground I was, and why that seemed off to me. All at once, my body allocated with my mind, and my eyes lazily opened. That hum of silence coddled me as each sense flickered on like a neglected street lamp. I could see off the edge of the couch. There was a blank TV surrounded by tapes and DVDs. A coffee table canted at an angle and shoved away. Bright natural light filled this temporary liminal space. I could smell a dust-free environment and a hint of tea? Peppermint, maybe? It was faint, so it was hard to tell. I heard the knock again and sat up, at attention as if my dad was knocking angrily on my bedroom door. But I wasn't in my bedroom. I was in Tansu's living room. I whipped my head around over the couch and absorbed the rest of the scene. Vision flickering, fugue and lagging, I gripped the throw blanket tight before letting my muscles relax. I swallowed hard and dropped both feet to the floor, entire body heavy and more sore than I'd ever felt. Recent memories flooded my skull and glued me to the couch a moment longer. Every second, from yesterday morning to the moment his blood splashed my face, hit me like a blast of sand, jolting my bones and twisting my gut. Groggy and dissonant, I looked to the floor. I was alone. While extending my arms up as far as I could to stretch, something popped, and my chest started to pound harshly. Following my chest, my lower back began throbbing. I huffed and shook everything from my hand to my ankles until I hurriedly moved toward the front door. My ears popped as I entered the tighter hall. With a click, the door unlocked, and I braced myself for the incoming light. I was greeted by a policewoman, standing tall and smiling as soon as she saw me. I squinted at her, the headache simmering. She spoke. "Good morning, Kimberly. It's very nice to see you again." The blur of drowsiness was rubbed away, and my eyes slowly adjusted to her shape, recognizing her. "Oh, good morning, Miss Curlin. Judging by your unbalance, I assume you were able to sleep last night." A tenderness expanded from her heart. I cracked my neck and shuddered, still stiff. "I did." "You look as bleary-eyed as my son getting up for church," she chuckled. I was too out of it to form a complete sentence. "I bet. Have you spoken with Miss Ikono yet?" I literally just rolled off the couch." "Right." She continued to exude a positive vibe, no doubt trying to avoid the serious matter of my predicament, and I personally wasn't going to bring it up. She tilted her body and shifted one foot, allowing me to look past her. On the ground, just behind, were a few duffel bags. "I stopped by to drop these off for you. As soon as you were safe, I went back to your home to collect necessities. You've got almost all of your clothes, toothbrush and accessories, backpack, and everything school-related that I could find. Your comforter is in one of the bags, and, what else?" She pondered. "Oh, a CD player and some books from your room." I assessed the mental checklist of what I considered important. My closet came to mind, and all of the mementos in there. "That's awesome. Thank you so much. What will happen to the rest of the stuff in the house? I know I have some things in my closet to get, and I know my dad has a lot of junk I should probably look through." As I was talking, she had started moving the bags just inside the door, listening while stacking them to the right toward the dining area. She stepped back outside, considering what I had asked. Right now, the house is an active crime scene. We have to conduct a full investigation, which will take weeks, unless we find some damning evidence to point us in the right direction. Don't worry, the house will be on total lockdown until then. Everything inside will be safe. I nodded gently, settling into my brain and body. Looking past her to the front yard, I saw a blue sky peeking through surrounding foliage. A clean breeze rolled past the doorframe and filtered into the house, igniting a loving nostalgia within. I got lost in the feeling for a moment, thinking on what she had said. When I finally spoke, it was with a grungy voice, thirsty. To be honest, all I really care about is some stuff in my closet, and maybe some clothes he kept for my mom. Other than that, all of the furniture and tools could just be donated or something. She took out a small yellow notepad and pen, just like when she was interviewing me. I asked, "Do I technically own the house now?" She flashed her teeth with a flat expression. I'm not the person to ask. I believe the car is paid off, so that will go to you indefinitely. But as far as the home is concerned, that will likely be forfeit back to the state in the condition it's in. I nodded gently. It is a shithole. She chuckled at my comment, then checked her watch, then smiled back at me. Well, I'm sorry to say, but this was intended to be a quick stop. I have to get back to the station now. Will you be okay alone for a while? Or would you like for me to request an officer to check in on you again? I'll be okay, thank you. Alright, maybe go back to sleep for a couple of hours until someone gets home? I just might. My chest slumped and my bones started to feel brittle. At some point soon, I'd like to continue speaking on the events with you, but as for now, I will let you be. She extended her hand, and I took it in mine, passing a mutual shake, and she walked away. Her cruiser was parked along the road in front of the house, and I stood in the doorway until she spun around and left. Outside was tempting, but I resisted its call for now. Instead, I re-entered the house and ignored the duffel bags. The enclosed silence welcomed me back, and I sauntered over to the living room, my mind a swarm of sleepy and angry bees. I observed where I had been sleeping on the couch. My indent was still fresh. Then I looked to where Tansu had rested on the floor. It was a neat pile, all things considered. I smiled softly, thinking about how sweet it was of her to sleep out here with me. That's where I noticed the index card on the push-aside coffee table. I picked it up and read it in my head. Kim, I apologize for not being able to stay home. I couldn't take the time off from work so suddenly. You should know the school board has been informed and you are more than welcome to take time off. You don't have to return until you feel up to it, and they will hold all of your work for you. I'll be home as soon as I can, and the bus will be dropping Tansu off around 3:20. If you need me, I'm just a phone call away. Kari. Her cell phone number was scribbled at the bottom of the note. Kari, I whispered softly. Such a pretty name. It suits her. I wondered why Tansu was riding the bus today. I set the note back on the table with a frown. A small breath of sadness brushed me, a realization. They left me alone. Maybe I assumed too much of them. I rubbed my sore arms. Now becoming a bit depressed, I let my arm fall loose by my side and sniffled. The thoughts of them only doing this because they felt obligated to, or maybe to help poor old me, the girl who lost her mom and dad. The thought of that just made me feel like crap, a waste of space. An odd feeling touched me. A small trickle slid down my upper lip, over the bump and down my chin. My eyebrow rose in confusion, and I wiped at my mouth. To my surprise, I discovered a deep red smear of blood on my hand, and more of the substance immediately flowed from my nose. Out of nowhere, a fierce headache seized tight. The dizziness tackled me and stole my balance. Trying to maintain my composure, I stumbled somewhat but let myself sit on the floor to regain my breath. The thumping rose in my head, then sank just as quickly. Damn, I panted. Looking down at my arms, my skin was pale and the veins in my wrists eagerly pushed to the surface, deep blue and pulsing hard. Another jolt hit me, causing my eyes to go dark and my body limp. They reopened seconds later, and I found myself collapsed on the floor, entirely unfeeling. What is this? I struggled to keep a steady breath and stay calm. Fear reared its ugly head into my thoughts. My bones started shifting under my skin, twisting, stretching, and then relaxing. A grinding breath crawled up my throat, drawn from the pain of these strange, involuntary sensations. Suddenly a snap in my lower back forced my eyes to clamp shut, and a high-pitched squeal to erupt from my throat. In the darkness under my lids, I could see flashing faces and looks of haunted torment, all bombarding my mind clear as day. I saw many faces. All are unique and wearing different emotions, but carry the same adolescent features, appearing and disappearing like flashes of lightning. Illegible whispers crowded my ears from every direction. Then there was only one face just staring at me through my dark eyes, and all went silent in my head. I panted heavily, trying to control this coarse sting in my bones. It was persistent and unchanging. That last flash with a face I could not make out was staring, watching the core of my brain, looking into my soul. Suddenly I felt a burning lump in my throat. My eyes popped. I made a clumsy dash to the sink. My knees slammed into the cabinets below as my torso constricted and I heaved a sputtering glob of acidic vomit. I inhaled sharply after the expulsion, sucking acidic saliva up my nose and into my airways. I coughed and fell backward, fumbling into the island behind me. As I struck the island, everything went blank for a second, but came back to me soon as a colorless blob of stilted, swirling motion. Every intake of air wheezed and clogged. My airways burned and my stomach gnarled, feeling like two snakes made of steel wool fighting for their lives in my belly. My arms and legs lost feeling again, and I just sat there on the floor, staring at nothing and unable to think of anything else but the horrors I left behind. I felt the tears trickle down my face. My pupils vibrated and my heart slowed to such a lull that I thought I would die. A stark contrast to the alarm I experienced just moments ago. Without my command, my hands raised and I looked at the open palms facing me. I could see the blood, his blood, my blood. It was wet and glistening with warm, stolen vitality. Everything behind my flesh was dark mist, dancing shadows. The shadows were laughing, showing me blips of his transgression and my retaliation. It was so vivid. I was there. My arms dropped like lead weights, and my head gently rested on my right shoulder. Minutes passed, and the terror abandoned me. Frozen in time, it was so quiet. I was all alone. I tried to convince myself that I never went home last night, that I stayed here overnight, overslept, and didn't go to school. But Miss Curlin continually contradicted that theory. Last night happened. My father is dead. I killed him. There was a pinging noise. Its sudden ding made me blink and instantly sent a shot of life in my veins. My head lifted again. It almost sounded like a wind chime. Shaking, I pulled myself to my feet, using the island as support. I focused on the sink. Thankfully, I didn't puke a lot. I didn't have much in me, and all of it landed in the sink. I exhaled and swallowed, wiping my lips and sniffling. Another jingle pinged through the house. Following its docile sound, my head turned to the dining room windows. The small chime dangled outside one of them, overlooking the front yard. Its tiny noises were brought to me by the wind. "Are you okay?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. Spinning in a quick circle, I saw there was no one except for me in the house. The demon's icy static presence coiled between my ribs. What the hell was that?" I asked worriedly. "A panic attack," she said sarcastically. No, that wasn't like any I've ever had. That was unique and powerful." She gave a sinister chuckle. "That sensation is the result of you claiming your father. A bit delayed, being your first time using, but it shows that we have moved on to the first stage of my advancement. In other words, I have gotten stronger, and therefore you have gotten stronger. I blinked hard. Okay. I didn't expect a straightforward answer. I thought you were going to bite my head off like before. You saw me at my worst. To fuller born in a spite of blind rage and bloodlust. That storm in me had somewhat quelled. The storm quelled? What, so now you're saying you're going to be a lot nicer to me? No, you putrid whelp. I guess I have no choice but to educate you. After all, your ignorance will only hinder me. Ask the right questions, and you may find the answers. Tell me more about that horrible sensation. I don't ever want to feel that again. She snorted. You will, and it's simple. Whenever you and I claim a life, a fraction of your soul is sliced off and sent to a special place for holding, waiting for the rest of you. I simultaneously grow to fill that lost space, feeding off the life essence of whoever we claimed. I could hear the grin on her face. My teeth grit. Her words carried a lot of honest and terrifying weight. You're serious? And what happens when all of my soul is gone? Your soul isn't taken after you die. Your soul being taken is what will cause you to die, leaving just me. I assembled her explanation into a shapeless visual I could understand. And you? What you did before when you jumped my skin? Can you just take control whenever you want? What are you, a fucking moron? You should know this. My nostrils flared. Oh, pardon me for not remembering everything that the old man said when I was going through the worst trauma of my life. I spat mockingly. She groaned in aggravation. Like most, your personal trigger is anger, but with trace amounts of fear. Those are the core elements allowing me to step through the door. You're saying I can't get mad without you making me kill everyone around me? You can get mad all you like. The anger that allows me to loan you my power is different. Raw and unexploited fury. Excitement sharpened her words. Right then, the house phone started to ring. The sudden blaring noise jolted my system and spiked my heart. I turned towards it on the dividing wall by the kitchen, the display screen flashing an emerald green. It kept ringing, completely stealing all of my attention. I should check it. Maybe it's Kari or the school. If it isn't, then what would I say to the caller? It isn't my house, and I really don't have the right to pick it up. I decided to let it ring, and when it finally stopped, the noise persisted as a ghost in my ears. I refocused on the conversation. So, where did the pieces of my soul go? And what will happen to it, or me, when it's all there? You are linked to the place of my birth by the contract you signed. When the set is complete, you will awaken in beautiful darkness. In this pit, you will experience your absolute worst nightmare. Your greatest fears and regrets will be used to strip your soul of its humanity, thus creating fuel for new life. She grinned. I swallowed hard, but almost didn't believe her, figuring she was just trying to scare me or is blowing it out of proportion. This place, does it have a name? I asked. My ears then popped again. She didn't respond, like she got bored and left. Only there was nowhere for her to go, so she was ignoring me. I gave her time to answer before determining that she wouldn't. Great. Good talk, I sighed sarcastically. This girl, this demon, was mysterious. She always had an angered edge to her voice, but was also introverted and lax now compared to then. Curiosity contracted my chest. I swallowed and moved over to the sink, running the water over my small blob of puke and forcing it down the drain. I then took a few paper towels from the roller close by and wet it, wiping my face clean. I turned away from the sink and focused on breathing for a moment. My fingers were twitching still. I kept sensing the sting of last night attempt to hook itself in my thoughts. I shook it off over and over again until I shuffled around the kitchen. I ended up stopping at the refrigerator. There were a lot of things held up by magnets, some childish doodles, a notepad, a calendar, and a bunch of photos. One was a photo of her mom, wearing glasses and sitting in a chair reading. Another was Tansu, blowing out candles at a very young age. She was getting help from a man, presumably her dad. Just below that was a picture of Tansu. In the photo, she was sitting on a bench outside, holding an acoustic guitar in her lap. She looked into the camera and had the biggest smile on her face. Last, there was a picture of who I am still guessing is her dad. He seemed slightly heavier with round glasses and a crew cut. He seemed to be wearing a uniform. A Red Cross patch was embroidered onto his shoulder. It occurred to me that I haven't seen or heard anything from him. This made me anxious, thinking about where he could be, or if he was even still around. One thing is certain. Tansu sure looks happy in these photos, and none of these were taken in this house. I rotated around and looked at the house with new context. Then something occurred to me. "Hey, are you still there?" I asked out loud. Nothing. "Listen, I just had one more question. I just realized I don't even know your name. Do you have one?" I asked nicely. My skull buzzed once more. "No. I never learned my name before I was placed with you." "Then what will I call you?" "I don't care. It won't make a bit of difference to me anyway." She expressed aggravated impatience again. "Why do you sound so pissed off at me? What did I do to you?" I asked with the same bitterness. She said nothing. I could almost feel the smug grin on her face as she chortled to herself. Fine then, if she didn't have a name and didn't care what I called her, then I'll come up with one besides rotten bitch. Something fierce and proud, but brooding and mysterious. I thought hard, but every name I came up with seemed dumber than the last. I began pacing back and forth, moving away from the living room, stopping at the dining room window and staring off into the side yard. The chime was still now. This little view provided no inspiration, but did leave me with a sense of peace in my chest. The outside world ended up distracting me, so I moved around the house and stared at the floor, thinking of a name. On my 14th lap around the living room, I stopped. It hit me. "Alice. I'd like to call you Alice." I spoke to the walls. I heard a soft snicker. "Alice, huh? Took you long enough to decide that." I shrugged. "Do you like it?" "It doesn't matter to me. My purpose here does not change if I have a name or not. My only relief is that it's short." "Yeah? And what purpose is that?" "I told you. Wear your flesh." "What else? What comes after that?" I urged. She snarled, and I could tell she was smiling deviously. With that, I heard a soft whoosh sound, like a tiny gust of wind blasted my eardrum, and I felt no more static in my head, no more buzzing. She had left, or something along those lines. "Mysterious. Definitely mysterious." I sighed with a loss of words. She was an odd one, and I'm not yet sure what to think of her. Still, I got some answers. Next time, I'll ask her the other 100 questions I have. For now, I need to find my place again. This house was my new temporary home, along with the new temporary family. At this time, I took the note from the table again and read it 2 more times. I understood better now. Like me, this was a sudden change in events. In order to afford a house like this, her mom works hard. She's obligated to go to work, and Tansu has school. She just moved here. She can't afford to miss a day right now. Her mom is evidently the type to enforce education. That makes sense. I dragged my feet and sat back on the couch, still feeling groggy. The pillow I cuddled with for the past few hours had been dropped to the floor at some point. For now, I left it there and rested my head on the stiff arm. The new day's sunlight was shining through the window and hit sections of my cool body. I lay there in silence and peace for half an hour, not thinking, not speaking, just lying there, eyes closed, hands placed comfortably behind my head. I almost fell asleep again, falling in and out of dreams, ultimately keeping lucid, thinking about where I am, what had happened last night, and those faces I saw. But the thing on my mind I kept circling back to was this demon inside me. Alice, I guess. When she was quiet, I couldn't feel her, yet there was an itch at my core, some inclination that she was with me, but it wasn't incredibly obvious. My thoughts were completely focused on her. Who is she? What is her real goal here? And can she be trusted? I know nothing of her, and she is so strange, so dynamic. I need to know more about her, but how do I get her to answer my questions? She stopped talking when I pried, but she didn't act secretive. She was just toying with me. Tansu would be home from school soon, and I needed to occupy myself somehow. I kept feeling my brain attempt to latch onto what happened and where that trauma deposited me, but it was evasive, almost intelligently evading my attention. Maybe Alice was blanketing my thoughts or something, holding back those emotions for another breakthrough. A tender pulse in my head dimmed my vision in a loop. I started to focus intently, not just on what I saw, but every feeling in the air around me. The wind chime outside pinged softly, not audible but present in my ears. Looking at the nearest window, my eyes were burdened by vivid colors and glaring light rays. With the pulse in my brain, those colors deepened and retracted rapidly, flickering. Staring through the window, I noticed a tree on the other side of the road. I couldn't see the exact detail, but I could feel the energy of what I imagined to be a squirrel perching on a branch. He was gnawing on something, and I could hear it. Sitting up, I switched my attention to the bathroom behind me and to the right, turning my torso and head to stare at the partially open door. A drip in the sink flicked my eardrum every second or two. The walls of my eyes were warped the slightest amount, curved in a way to screw with my depth of perception. I rubbed them hard, breathing casually through my nose. A chill ran up my spine, and I focused on nothing at all. Just the tops of my hands as they were draped over my knees, trembling. Another half-hour passed in silent consideration. The thought of my fist bludgeoning my father's skull abruptly beamed into my brain. The impact of my bones against his, and how I felt nothing from the collision, had my attention. Curious, I reached to the coffee table and grabbed the ceramic coaster. I tapped it against the table. It was solid, but with almost no effort, I snapped it in half like a cracker. I'm strong, even now, I thought. The rising and falling anxiety continually altered my energy and interest. Seconds ago, I was content in relaxing on the couch and not thinking. Now I felt the urge to move and think until my mind collapsed. My neck was stiff. I didn't feel right. Then my gaze wandered around the house until they landed on my things by the door. A moment of consideration, then a motion of interest. I got up. Inside one bag, I shuffled through a mound of clothing, mostly shirts and tank tops in this one. Another bag contained a few pairs of pants, then socks and underwear. The third bag held my blanket and a pillow. Then the final bag was full of miscellaneous things like my toothbrush, hairbrush, a box of pads, some makeup I never used, and multivitamins. Plus everything she mentioned before. I thought that was everything, but underneath all of this junk was one final item. My sketchbook. I grinned when I saw its spiral-bound spine and tan cover, but decided to leave it alone for now. I returned to the first bag of clothes and unpacked a pair of pajama pants and an old shirt. Standing right in front of the hallway, I peeled off the jeans and shirt I slept in last night and changed into something more comfortable, considering I wouldn't go anywhere for the entire day. I set my dirty clothes aside for now, in the corner of the same bag, and zipped it back up. With a loud yawn, I scratched my right ear and rustled my hair, trying to fix it, but moreover just pushing the mess to one side. With a sloppy grip, I twisted the handle and opened the front door fully. The fresh, warm air poured into the house, heating my skin on contact. I turned around and looked at the clock mounted on the wall in the hallway. Tansu would be dropped off in about an hour. With one last knuckle crack and eye rub, I stepped outside, shut the door behind me, and found a decent-sized rock planted in the front yard to sit on and wait for her. Waiting in the yard was peaceful. more than I thought it could be. I was squinting in the daylight and held my knees close to my chest, but looking around at the neighboring houses filled me with new contentment. I smiled lightly, resting my chin on my knees. Only then did it occur to me that the bandages were gone. Of course they were. Those wounds healed during the transformation. I remember that. But Tansu would surely notice without the shocking event clouding her attention. I guess I could explain that the injury bled a lot but wasn't bad. As far as I'm concerned, if she doesn't ask, then I won't talk about it. I adjusted myself a handful of times on the rock, but even with the slight discomfort in my butt, I couldn't be happier out here. It was warm, bright, and isolation was just a distant concept. That hour I had to wait until the bus arrived went by in a flash. I was watching a blue jay perched on a branch across the road when the bus passed the driveway. I snapped back into reality and followed it with my head as it reached the dead end and carefully turned around. The brakes cried out loudly, and then it gave a low hiss as it stopped at the mouth of the driveway. The doors opened, and I glanced at the windows. It was nearly empty. She stepped down and located me off to the side as the bus pulled away. "Hey," I called out. "Look at you, sitting outside in the sun," she said with less enthusiasm in her tone than her words should have conveyed. "Yeah, I woke up a little bit ago and figured it would be good to get some fresh air. Plus, I wanted to be here when you got off the bus." She smiled a little more, but it faded quickly, now resting as a pretty neutral expression. "You all right?" I asked. "I'm fine. Are you?" "Good as can be," I said with a hopeful tone. "I'm glad." There was a somewhat long pause. A breeze rolled by and gave me a chill while at the same time lifting her hair in random ways. She looked weighted, almost sad. Then she tilted her head and looked at me differently. She raised a finger. "Wait here a minute." "For what?" Without an answer, she jogged into the house. I shrugged and kept myself planted on this rock until she came back. It didn't take long, maybe 2 or so minutes, but when she finally exited the house and reapproached me, I saw that she had a small black item in her hands. "Give me a smile," she demanded cheerfully. I saw what she had as she held it in front of her face. A small digital camera. "Whoa, hold on. What's the camera for?" I put my hands in front of my face, blocking her view. "I need a picture of you since you're going to be part of this family one day." "Wow, you sound certain of that. Do you really need to do it now? I'm filthy," I complained, keeping my hands in front of my face. "No, I don't, but I might not think of it later." "Then I'll remind you," I chuckled, keeping my hands raised. "Too late, I'm already here. Besides, the lighting is perfect and you look great. Now move your hands," she demanded. "But, okay, fine, if you really feel the need." "I do." She lifted the camera again, and I positioned myself on the rock, giving the desired angle for a profile shot. "All right, I got a good one." She turned the camera off. "By the way, my mom said that the officer lady was supposed to stop by with your things. Has she come by yet?" "Yeah, actually, not too long ago." "What, you didn't see that I got changed?" I referred to my clothes. "I guess not." A giggle. "Did she bring any pictures of your family that maybe you'd like to hang up? When you're ready, of course. Anything to make you feel more at home." I could tell she was trying to remain sensitive, while also being encouraging. Psh, nope. Honestly, the last time we took a family photo was a long, long time ago. I think I was maybe 3 years old, I said uncertainly. We weren't really the take-a-picture type of family. And any picture we did take was on disposable cameras that we never got developed. "Oh, that's sad." "Thanks," I whispered sarcastically. "Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that," she apologized. "I know, I'm only joking." She smirked shyly. "It's nice to see you're in a joking mood." I shrugged. I felt a lot of feelings yesterday. Right now, I'm just kinda existing. Besides, I always did use comedy to cope. She shuffled her feet. "Well, at least now we have a picture of you. Are you ready to come inside, or did you need some more time in the sun?" Oh, I'm good to come in. Actually, I should probably eat something soon, if my stomach lets me. I can help you find something after I use the bathroom, she said, relatively unexpressive. Cool. I followed her inside. She noticed the duffel bags and gave me an approving look. Then I positioned myself at the dining room table while she settled in. I couldn't help but latch onto her posture and tone. She seemed tired, as she should be, considering what time she fell asleep. And then having to go to school just to cope with the day and stay attentive, I'm sure she was beat. In less than 10 minutes, she joined me at the table, handing me an apple from the fridge and a granola bar. We sat across from each other, and I instantly dug into the apple. As I chewed, she placed her elbows on the table and leaned forward, cupping her face while yawning cutely. Tired? I asked. Yes, and my head hurts. I'll probably take a nap later, she said. You look like you need it. Must have had a hard time sleeping on the floor. It wasn't bad, she smiled. How are you holding up, actually? Her voice had genuine concern in it. I sighed, pondering the bite taken out of the apple. It's, hard to describe, So much is going through my head that I think my emotions are in some weird, indecisive limbo. I understand. I wanted to wake you up this morning and let you know that we wouldn't be here, but you were sleeping hard, so that's why my mom left a note. By the way, do you think you'll be returning to school anytime soon? I didn't say anything at first. My brain was lagging behind a little. She became a little nervous. Not that you need to go back anytime soon, but just, people have and will ask. I'm not sure. I do want to go back, but it's a bit more complicated than my own wants. I have a lot to sort out and feel. Thinking back on the events of that night, I understood something. School is just a breeding ground for hatred and stress. I need to find out more about her and how this whole thing works before I can return to school. I don't want any accidents. It is complicated, isn't it? She spoke softly, troubled. I looked at her with quiet intent, examining her body language. Tight, head low, and hands in that weird balled fist again. Her voice grew softer. I know you said before that your dad was... She shook her head and bit her lip. I watched her closely, anticipating what she might spit out. She continued. You must have a lot of conflicting emotions, and I just want you to know that I will be here for anything you need. We both will. I licked my lips, taking time to pause and absorb her words. Thank you. That's relieving to hear. I'll still try to not be a burden. She smiled. You could never. Awkward, I spun the apple on the table. So, did I miss anything important today? Actually, we had an assembly this morning instead of first period. The principal stood up in front of the school and informed everyone about your loss. Sparing the details, of course. It wasn't really a means to point you out, but more of a small-town, local news tragedy kind of thing. An angry butterfly ripped around my chest. They had an assembly? She nodded. I was in complete shock. This idea that the school felt it important enough to gather everyone for an event in my life was downright insanity. That, and now that everyone knows, I just felt this huge ball of embarrassment in my chest. He said we should all respect your privacy and send you thoughts and prayers. He didn't say where you were staying or anything like that. My stuttering breath receded as I let that image simmer. I leaned back in my chair, tipping it on its two back legs and balancing it there. Oh boy, thoughts and prayers. Can't wait for those to show up in the mail. I rolled my eyes. Anything else? I asked, admittedly impatient. She rubbed her eyes. Joey found me in between classes after and asked me about you. I guess the police station called his house last night, but no one answered. I told him you were with me and to give you space, that you'll call him when you're collected. After that, I didn't see him for the rest of the day. A frown overcame my present face, and I allowed the chair to drop forward, my body heavy. Also, she started, that girl, Stacy, found me. She asked about you, too. Her voice was softer now. Great, I groaned sarcastically. Let me guess, she's gonna hold lunch for me every day until I get back. I shook my head. I'm not sure about lunch, but she told me to give you a message. The message being her pushing me into the locker and storming off. My lungs tensed. She did what? Tansu exhaled and shrugged. It's okay. I think she's just a little confused right now. The whole school felt really weird today. I made a fist on the table. Clearly, she could see my teeth were grit behind my lips and my shoulders were tight with the building rage. Don't get upset, Kim. I don't want you to get into a fight over this, she said worriedly. A crick in my neck forced me to rotate my head. A hot breath slid from my lips and my vision was clouded with thoughts of violence. Don't worry. It won't be a fight.